I think it's hugely important to have all of that organized and easily available to be able to pull whatever reports are needed. Like, should be important when you're running your business to make, better decisions throughout the journey, but particularly in a sale process, like going to my earlier point about it's always a risk evaluation that's happening, and you want to appear as organized and professional as possible, and delivering data that people are asking for, it's a really important part of that.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Next Mile. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder at Milemarker. And today I am joined by Jacqueline Martinez. Jacqueline is the managing partner at Alaris Acquisitions, and she is a world traveler. Very excited about an upcoming trip to do food tours and the like in Charleston, South Carolina, which I can relate to. So I'm excited about that. But Jacqueline, it's so great to have you on the show. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thanks for having me on, Kyle. I'm excited to be here too.
Of course. All right. Jacqueline, I ask everybody the same first question that comes on the show, so you are not going to be any different. I've had over 100 of these conversations on air and off air, and I found everybody has their own unique path to our industry. Some, it's a very traditional path. Some people, they didn't even know this was an industry they could work in. But whether the path is traditional or untraditional, I found everybody has what we call a money moment. And that's that moment in your life where the light bulb clicked on and you said, this is it. This is what I want to do for my career. So for you, what was that money moment that led you to be sitting in the chair you're in right now, having this conversation with me?
Well, I did have a bit of a traditional path. I did a finance major at University of San Diego, but I didn't know about wealth management growing up. It wasn't a part of our family culture or anything. And just kind of fell into a role at United Capital originally back in 2011. I had a super bizarre interview experience with Joe Duran where he was basically I was working at a commercial bank at the time. And so he was like, you're not going to work here. I guess he had hired people from banks and was like, you're not, and I guess most people would have walked away from that. But I suppose I liked the intensity. And I think ultimately it was trying to preserve their entrepreneurial culture that they had, sure, which I really was seeking. So I emailed him the next day and I was like, I'm up for the challenge. And many years later, I worked, in various roles. But the last few years leading up to the sale to Goldman Sachs, I worked on the M&A team. We did 35 deals during that period, and then stayed on at Goldman for a couple of years. And, everything kind of progressed. It looks very linear on my resume, but I didn't expect any of it to happen for sure.
Man, that is a great money moment story. That's hilarious. That does also feel like a quintessential Joe Duran story as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Some great people from the United Capital days. I think some of them are listening to this, so I've got to just shout them out. So shout out Brandon Gage, shout out Jared Upton. Those are two real ones that I appreciate. And there's many, many more, but just shout out to those guys because I know I've talked to them recently. So you do 35 deals in a year, which is bananas. That is a lot of deals.
Well, that was that was over a few years, the last few years of United Capital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be dead, I think, if I did 35 a year.
I was like, so hold on a second. How are you still, you're kicking, you're fine. You seem healthy and well-adjusted. No, but that's still a lot of deals, even over a couple of years. There's a lot of volume there. Obviously, that informed what you're doing now. But what are some of the big learnings from being able to do that level of volume of deals, but still maintain the culture and the things that you did? Because, United Capital was really known for that. They were known for the culture. They were known for being able to really lean in and do a good job there. So what do you think was the quote unquote secret to the success?
I think a lot of it was everyone was super focused on what the mission was, and we knew it. And we were all such stewards of that culture and took it very seriously. So I saw firsthand when we really nailed the fit on the M&A team and the group is thriving after the close and contributing to other things beyond their local office, and, and just to see how great that can all be and how important it was. And then, compared to others that were, maybe they joined at a different time when the vision evolved over time, and they were more resistant to change or kind of held us back from where we wanted to go. And just seeing how getting that fit right made the world of difference. So that's really informed like our work at Alaris today, where we're working with, call it over 75 buyers in the wealth management space, all the names you would know. And we take that level of care when getting to know each of the buyers, because like we saw firsthand how important that was at United Capital.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how did that inform you doing what you're doing now? So you have all of that experience, you're there. And so then you become a part of Alaris. Like, how did that get you here?
Yeah. So I would say originally when Alan started it, we thought, okay, let's find a couple baby United Capitals and make them the next big thing. And that was kind of the original thought behind it. And then, we quickly realized that there's just so many very well-established firms and resources that they avail to clients and teams and everything, and just really got immersed in all of the options out there. But to maintain, all of that data in a way that sellers can ingest it in a way to make an informed decision about their best partner, we've invested heavily in AI to be able to manage that information and create like a usable format for it, if you will.
Okay. So we got to talk about that. I know you guys built a tool for this, but I actually want to take kind of zoom out a bit and talk about this from more the macro lens, which is when it comes to acquisitions, M&A, you don't really get to go back on the decision or whatever. I mean, once you kind of make this decision, that's the decision you're making. And I think there's a lot of fear and trepidation that goes into, is this the right partner? How do I evaluate this as a fit? All of that type of stuff. Because there's a lot of deals happening. There's lots of places that are acquiring. There's lots of landing places. So before we get into some of the tools that you've developed for some of this, just talk to me about the psychology that goes into finding a good buying partner for you or vice versa. Because once you make that decision, it's really hard to unwind it without a lot of pain.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And like everyone talks about the cultural fit, and it's very like an elusive concept, and it can boil down to more of like subjective statements that are made that you like them, or, oh, we don't allow jerks here, or, just kind of these like flippant statements. We believe like if both sides are very clear on their vision, like structural differences that they want, what kind of deal do they want to have? Is it an asset purchase, a minority investment, or like, are we, very strictly fee only, or I want to partner with a firm that is early in their life cycle or very established, or things that like sellers want to have control over or not. And we distill that down into a bunch of data points that the like sellers are saying, these are all of the things that are important to me. And then we match that up with all of the buyers and say, okay, if we can agree on all of these points of alignment, then that really removes a lot of those moments of like, I wish I had known that sooner. And kind of, once you're so emotionally invested in the deal because you like the people, agreeing on those points of alignment of what things will you have control over and what services do you want to be able to avail to clients, and what kind of training for next gen or like lead programs, or all of those things that are really important to the overall partnership. If you can match on all of those things, then I think the subjective parts of it can follow, and to make sure that it's the right fit.
And so you guys just launched Alaris Lens, right?
That's right.
And is that something that is informed by what you're just talking about? Hey, here's the points that we know are kind of alignment points. Let's make sure that these are lined up, because it's not fully, I think a lot of people call it a matchmaking service. Maybe that's appropriate. But sometimes when I think of matchmaking, it's like swiping left or right. But this is more really trying to use data and AI to match up data points of alignment for you, what you care about, to a firm that has those. And dare I say, maybe even find firms you don't even know we're out there acquiring that are a great fit for you?
Absolutely. I mean, like sellers are getting more sophisticated. They're getting more curious. They want education years in advance of like really being serious and having a sale process. And so Alaris Lens is a tool where sellers can log in and see profiles on all the top firms in our industry. They can filter on a lot of the characteristics I was just saying, where, we want fee only, we want organic growth programs beyond custodial referral programs, we want training for next gen. The list goes on and kind of match on those things. But then there's also interviews. So for all of those buyers, we have interviews with the leadership team, the CEO, the head of investments, head of marketing, where you can really get to know their feel, the cultural part of it, and also get the content out of it as well to really see what resonates with them. And then from there, they can filter on, the buyers are also saying, okay, our ideal fit for someone that joins our firm is they're focused on growth and wanting to have a team that wants to grow to the next level, or maybe not. Maybe they're totally okay with strictly solving for the succession efficiently, and just finding that right fit on a myriad of factors. Yeah.
That's great. That feels like that's necessary. This is just a, out of the blue question, but what percentage from the data that you're looking at are firms that are not looking to grow or not looking for, something like, hey, I'm trying to plug into a system where we're going to grow bigger and better together? Because I know a lot of times the buyers, like, they're not looking to just buy assets and, they're looking to figure out, okay, we've got some sort of organic growth engine here. We want to take this, we want to combine it with that. But I do know there is some percentage of the population that's saying, hey, this is my succession plan. You guys can do what you want to do with it or whatever. But like, I'm not looking at this from a growth perspective.
Like for us, for Alaris, I would say it's probably 1 in 10 deals that is more like strictly focused on succession. I think the difference, like my theory on why that is, like our client base versus maybe other competitors of ours, would be that when we go to market on a deal, it's not a huge financial auction, which is like usually the way that these things are done, where you're filtering on price for many levels, and then you're kind of making sure that the fit is right at the end of it. We've totally flipped that around and made it about all of these points of alignment and cultural fit points, and have a small group of buyers at that point that really are matched on all of those factors. And I think people choose our model when all of the life after close elements like really matter a lot to them, So it just, I think, I don't know, that's my theory on why our numbers are a little lower. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense though.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I'm just going to double click on it. So I kind of asked, okay, how many firms are maybe not looking to grow or whatever? Let's look on the other side. What are like the most common variables that you're seeing from firms who are looking to not necessarily maximize their value, but just like they want to maximize on the best fit or whatever? What are the most common variables?
The most common things, I would say, like our typical client is, maybe 500 million to $1 billion in assets. So they have a decent sized team. They've usually hired next gen talent, junior advisors that have been with them for a few years, but the founders are looking for more support, less managerial responsibilities, but they have usually been the key business development person or persons in the firm. And so wanting to transition that responsibility to elevate the junior advisors that are on the team. And what's needed for that is a buyer to come in with a lead flow and maybe a concierge desk where they're vetting leads and that sort of thing, and kind of teeing that up for the advisor to go close it and service it ongoing. And then they're also usually at that stage, they don't have like tax prep in-house, or they don't have estate planning expertise in-house, and wanting to add that and have it be more of a seamless experience too. So when we're hearing those things, we know out of all the buyers, which ones are staffed for that, because it can't all sound the same, are we trying to differentiate between like French vanilla and Tahitian vanilla? And we really get granular and say, okay, you're looking for estate planning expertise on all of your client relationships. XYZ firm has 12 JDs dedicated to doing this for the advisors in the firm, versus when you peel the onion on some other firms, they may say that, but really it's a third-party relationship with another estate planning firm or something like that, like really not integrated. So to be able to make sure that what's important to the seller, that the buyer does exceptionally well, that we're matching on that level, the right level.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit at the front of the show, but almost everybody we've had on as a guest that is doing acquisitions, has done a couple of them, has really stressed the importance of culture fit when it comes to this. One, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as a whole, but then two, how this front end piece of using Alaris Lens might increase your probability or chances of finding a better culture fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think having a clear vision on what is your ideal addition to the firm or your ideal partner if you're a seller is so important. Because, yeah, I agree. Everyone says cultural fit, but it's like, what does that really even mean? And so I think if we can break that down, and like our process, we spend probably 4 to 6 weeks with the seller, like really getting granular on a lot of these topics, but it would be like kind of the structural things, like, are you looking to join onto one ADV of the buyer? Do you really want to maintain like your separate branding and separate ADV and really just have an investment? Or like your fee model, do you need some folks on your team to be registered with a broker dealer too, or not? Is it super important to you that the entire firm is fee only? Things like that. And then the second part would be life cycle differences. It's very different to join a more entrepreneurial firm than someone that's more established, 25, 50 billion plus, different level of resources that you have access to. But it may also be appealing to like be at a smaller firm where you may have a seat at the table, or you may be involved in key decisions, or the equity appreciation road may be potentially more lucrative if all the stars align, that sort of thing. And that may be exciting to you. And then, I would say the autonomy differences, like it's really table stakes nowadays that you're handing over the keys for a lot of the back office functions. Like usually people are happy to give up people over compliance or HR or accounting work and that sort of thing. But as you start to creep into the client experience and things that may impact the end clients, or do you still want to be really involved in the security selection for portfolio management, or like just different things like that? Getting clear on what's important to you as a seller. And then on the buyer side, being able to articulate what you want to take over, what's mandatory, what things are optional, and you're okay being flexible on with the seller. That's really helpful too. And then the other, like the last part of it would be what we call expansion of capabilities. So from a people standpoint, like being able to offer additional services to your clients, or maybe it's training programs for the next gen advisors, different programs like that, kind of getting really clear with the seller on what's important to them and their team at this point in their cycle is, I think if you can agree on all of those things and the buyer matches up well with what the seller needs, then that's a much better foundation for exploring the cultural fit element of it. Do I like them? Do I think that they're going to be like humble and open to change and those types of things that are attractive? But if we can agree on all of the foundation, then it makes those other parts a lot easier.
This podcast is brought to you by Turncast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
Hey, Next Mile listeners, Jessica here from Milemarker. We talk a lot about reaching that next mile in your business journey, but let's be for real for just a sec. If you're an advisor, how much time are you spending wrestling with data instead of actually advising your clients? I've worked firsthand with tons of advisors over the years, helping them achieve real success and breakthrough growth. But I keep seeing the same roadblock everywhere. Brilliant advisors stuck spending hours pulling reports from their different systems, trying to create meaningful client presentations and struggling to get a clear picture of their firm's growth. Does this sound familiar? Here's what I've learned. The advisors who are scaling and growing aren't necessarily smarter. They've just figured out how to get control over their data. That's exactly why I joined Milemarker, because they've built a solution that changes everything for how you manage and grow your firm. At Milemarker, we specialize in 3 game-changing areas for firms like yours: streamlining your data management so all your systems talk to each other, automating those repetitive reporting tasks that eat up your valuable time, and creating seamless advisor and client experiences that actually help you grow your firm. The difference is night and day. Instead of spending your evenings pulling together client reports, imagine having that data automatically organized and presented exactly how you need it. Instead of guessing about your firm's performance, imagine having real-time insights that help you make strategic decisions. If you are ready to stop being held back by your data and start using it to fuel your growth, I'd love to have a conversation with you. We're offering Next Mile listeners a complimentary consultation to explore exactly how we can help you transform your advisory practice. Don't let outdated processes keep you from reaching that next mile in your firm's growth. Visit milemarker.co and mention the Next Mile podcast, and I'll personally make sure to get the insights you need to take control of your data and scale your practice. Because your time should be spent building your business, not buried in spreadsheets.
Makes me want to ask somewhat of a controversial question. So feel free to take this and run with it, or you can reject it. But how would you advise a seller to verify a lot of the things that people say? So like you were talking about, hey, training programs and all of these other things. I think I'm not naming anybody specifically, and I honestly can't even think of anybody specific, but I've heard of the horror stories of effectively people over-promising to get deals done, and then you get in and it's not what you thought it was. So, hey, I thought there was a training program. Well, like, yeah, we have the scaffolding for what that is, but we don't actually have it like running, or, all of these types of things, right? Is there any advice from where you've sat looking at a bunch of these different things to say, how do you actually verify that when doing your own due diligence, if that really matters to you? Is that real? Is it fleshed out? Have people been successful in it? Is it a real thing? Or is this an idea that you are trying to launch and, you want us to be a part of it?
I love that question, honestly. And I could think of a million examples, but it'd probably be better over like cocktails. Yeah. But I would say, as a seller, ask a lot of questions, ask the same questions of different people in the organization. And the answers will vary based on each person's experience, but the general theme of it should be consistent. And when it comes to things like that you can quantify, like asking for as much data as possible. And usually buyers, while they may not think to lead with data and everything, if you press on it, usually they can produce that. Like, we've pushed X amount of people through our training program, or, we deliver leads to our offices. Okay, how many last year? And what was the total AUM that closed? And usually they have that information available. So I think like we work really hard to distill the data around it and focus on that. But I would also say, as much as, working with the leadership team or the deal team at the buyer's organization, is also to connect with partners that were in your shoes maybe a year ago, 3 years ago, and see what their experiences are like. We require our sellers that work with us to do those calls, like at least 3 of them, and try to mix up, how long they've been with the firm too, to see that evolution over time and everything. And like, we don't join those calls. The buyer's M&A team doesn't join those calls. And we really find that partners that are already there are very candid and give like a balanced view on it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and are the best gauge of validating a lot of those things.
That's really good. I love that. I love that strategy. And you're starting to get at this a little bit. So I want to dive in, which is, I think even with all the analytics, even with all the numbers, even with all of the stuff, it's very common, because this is such an emotional process, to have a quote unquote freak out moment or cold feet moment or something. When you're on your side of the table, how do you best navigate those things, right? Is it trying to uncover, hey, is this actually warranted? Or are you just kind of, is this feeling real for you? But hey, reinforcing all of the stuff that makes it a good fit, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you navigate those freak out moments when they inevitably happen?
Yeah, and they do. And it's unpredictable, but literally every deal will have that at some point. It would be weird if they didn't, So whenever it happens, I do remind people, like, we have prepared you for this. Like, we know that this will happen. And like you're saying, no, it's like unpacking whatever conclusion they're landing on, unpacking how they got there. And let's make sure it's accurate first, and like, try my best to stay calm and not fuel it. Because a lot of it, I think people think of like an investment banker, M&A advisor as like kind of being this gladiator between the buyer and the seller. And it's like ruthless and, all of that. And I mean, I think, there's obviously moments where we're working through deal terms and we're on different sides of the table. But a lot of the like gladiator work that we're doing is between the sellers, their current view of things and the world that they know today. And then they're so scared of what like the future will look like and what that means. And there's uncertainty. And it's just trying to find peace between those two things. I'm thinking about a seller where they came to us randomly. I remember I was like in Maui trying to relax. And he says like, I just don't understand their corporate vision and they don't have a lot of direction and all of these like very declarative statements about that. And I know the buyer incredibly well and that's not accurate, at least from like my experience with it. But I'm like, okay, well, walk me through it. Like, why are you saying these things, And as we went through it, he was perceiving the flexibility that he had in retaining control over certain things as them not having a clear vision of what they want. And somehow that was getting lost in translation of ideally you would be doing this, but we can live with you keeping control over investment selections and that sort of thing, if that's really important to you for the next few years. And there were a few other examples like that, but he was ready to walk away because he felt like they weren't clear on what they wanted and what this acquisition program was really setting out to attract and, and all of those things. So we were able to get through it. And I feel like a lot of times that's where those moments come from is like just a misunderstanding in the way that something was communicated. And sometimes we're able to get through it, but sometimes through going through how they got to that place, it may also just be that the key reasons that they set out to find a partner, that they're realizing that buyer doesn't check all of those boxes and that it is all accurate and it is just time to pause or call it off altogether. So, yeah.
Super insightful. Also, not to be lost in this, everybody should go relax in Maui. What a great place to relax, by the way, or to take a phone call like that. I actually, maybe not quite the same phone call, but I had a phone call of similar importance when I was in Maui. So maybe there's something about when you're trying to be there hanging out that those things happen.
Right? We should just go more and, just put all the issues on the table. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, everybody, whatever issues you've got, just bring them. Yes, that place is amazing. Probably like you, I travel all over and I tell a lot of people that was like a truly transformative experience for me when I went to Maui for the first time. I thought it was awesome. So
I love it too.
Shout out Maui, everybody.
Right.
Okay. So Milemarker is a technology company. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this a little bit in the process. When you are looking at alignment points or when you're looking at deals or advising, how much does the tech stack, the uniqueness of the tech stack, where things are at with that, how much does that play a role in fit, making sure that these deals happen and all of those things? I have a follow-up question to this, but I'm going to start with that being open-ended.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would put it this way. For the seller journey, as a seller, you need to think about every conversation or piece of information that you're sending a buyer. It's like a constant evaluation of the risk of your business, So every interaction, are you difficult to work with? Are you able to provide seemingly basic information like P&Ls for the last couple of years or net new assets or things like that, And so I think there's like a baseline of getting your house in order before you go to market, knowing that there's going to be kind of like a basic list of things that you're going to need to be able to provide quickly with a positive attitude, things like that, so that it can even get to the finish line. Like a lot of these buyers, they have PE backers. There's going to be a quality of earnings. You're just going to need to produce a lot of information to be able to get to a close. And depending on how painful it is to get all of the information out, is like, that's where the cultural fit parts of it can come into play. If you're getting really stressed out over providing all of your vendor contracts, that's pretty basic. You're going to need to do it. Don't get mad about that. And so I think that's where technology comes into play, is like finding that balance between the basics and then like perfection, because I think a lot of buyers view technology as we can solve for a lot of the efficiencies of having integrated systems and that sort of thing. So they're not necessarily looking to a seller to bring that to the table, but we need that baseline level of data to get the deal done.
That's great. On the flip side, how much does it matter to sellers about the tech that buyers are using? And does it matter if it's like the buyer's touting, we have this great tech stack, it's very modern, it's very, very whatever. And then the seller comes and they're like, you have the same portfolio management tool as the other three that I'm talking to. You have the same like planning tool, same whatever. Like it seems the same across the board, right? How is yours actually unique or different? Those types of things. Does that actually come up much in this? Or is it kind of like, hey, we know we're going to be folding into whatever it is they're doing anyway. So like, we're just going to have to get used to the new normal.
The new normal. Yeah. I mean, I see all flavors of that. I think most founders are open to change. I think there's like the devil's in the details, on planning software, there's people that are, gung-ho about e-money. And if they have to move to Money Guide Pro, that's a lot to manage mentally, or we, on the portfolio accounting side, we do account level rebalancing and now we're moving to household or vice versa, or bringing over the history of the performance data. That's always a big topic. So I think, kind of really distilling what is going to be different. And I think I would also encourage from a seller's point of view, if something is different, like maybe take the account level versus household level rebalancing. Okay, it is a difference, but if the buyer is managing 50 billion on a different way of doing things, maybe they figured out how to solve for the concerns that you have in the switch, and just being open to hearing about it and like staying curious and that sort of thing. I think it's not always like what the concern is, but how it's delivered that can really mess up a deal. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's
it's
great.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, self-serving question, because I've heard different opinions on this. Do you think, or what level of impact does it have on the value of a firm if you have all of your data in one place in something like a data warehouse where, you can make it portable, you can make it transformable, you can report on it easily, you can pull the data out that you want. So, hey, you have this great tech stack, but if you have all of your data centralized in a data lake, what does that do for multiples, for valuations, and for attractiveness to buyers?
I think it's hugely important to have all of that organized and easily available to be able to pull whatever reports are needed. Like, should be important when you're running your business to make, better decisions throughout the journey, but particularly in a sale process, like going to my earlier point about it's always a risk evaluation that's happening, and you want to appear as organized and professional as possible, and delivering data that people are asking for, it's a really important part of that. So it's worth the time to get organized. But I would say, I think there's a fine line though, between putting your team through a ton of change. If you are contemplating a sale, it's likely that they're going to have to go through another round of changes. So trying to be strategic about what changes really will move the needle for me to be able to sell my business efficiently, knowing that the team's going to go through a lot of change later too. So depending on how disruptive it is to the team, I think that's just something to balance. But yeah,
I love it. All right, let's talk about the future of the industry. So Jacqueline, get out your crystal ball, look into the future a little bit. This could be technology related. It could be whatever related. It doesn't matter. But when you look a couple years into the future, what are some things that you think are inevitable that they're just going to happen in the space?
Mm-hmm. I know. Well, I mean, knowing we use AI so much in our day-to-day work, I think that's going to be the focus. And, people are getting more and more comfortable with taking advice from large language models, and kind of think about some days like, will it just be advisors using a SaaS platform as users, and that's how they're interacting with clients? And then what would that do to profitability of these businesses? And like, how long does the smart money continue to invest in the wealth management business if so much moves to be automated and everything? So I know I'm biased to say this as an M&A advisor, but it seems like a great time to sell your business when like multiples are at an all-time high and AI is just beginning to be incorporated into the client experience. But we'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. That means it is time for us to move into the final segment of the show. We call this the Milemarker Minute. It is a series of lightning round questions aimed to be lighthearted, learn a little bit more about you outside of the M&A advisory role that you have. So, Jacqueline, are you ready for the Milemarker Minute?
Ready as I'll ever be. Yeah.
Awesome. If you could travel anywhere in the world you've never traveled to before, where would you go?
I really want to get to Thailand. That would be, yeah.
That's a great one.
Phuket. Yeah.
You all have mentioned in other interviews and things like that Alaris is Latin for matchmaker. Is there a fiddler on the roof fan in your office who's advocating for changing the name to Yenta?
Not yet. I'll keep you posted.
What is the best road trip you've ever been on?
Oh, God, a short one. I'm not really into road trips.
I love it. Are you a mountains person or a beach person?
Definitely beach. Although we're getting to Big Sky for Thanksgiving. So I'm excited to get my kids on skis. They're 4 and 8. So
that's awesome. It's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best flavor of ice cream?
Rocky Road.
What is the best book you've read or listened to in the past year?
I've really gotten into all of the Colleen Hoover books. It Ends With Us, and she's written a bunch more, and I think she'll have movies on 2 more. So I started a book club about 1.5 years ago with a bunch of girlfriends, and we probably talk about the books for like 5 minutes whenever we get together. But so it's been really fun for our relationships, but then also like a lot of the books that we've read are turning into movies. So it's been fun.
That's great. I love it. All right. There is an alternate universe, and in this universe, you do nothing related to financial services. In this alternate universe, what career does Jacqueline Martinez have?
I said this recently on a Street Cred podcast, but I have a dream of, I live near Laguna Beach in California and like have a little shop down there. And all I would do is wrap presents for people, probably seasonally, because they'll be in Maui most of the time, but call it November and December and maybe one other month that I would just wrap presents for a living. And yeah, that's it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you made it through the Milemarker Minute. Great job. This entire conversation was packed with a lot of insights for the people listening to this, because I know there are people who listen to this who are thinking about selling their business. And I know there's plenty of people who we've either had on the show or who listen to this who are acquiring. And so it's a great way for them to continue to get data points on framing how to make themselves better partners for the ideal person on the other side of the table. Thank you for sharing your stories and telling us about what you're up to at Alaris and with Alaris Lens. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course. All right, everybody, that's been another episode of Next Mile. Please make sure you click follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching it. And if you'd be kind enough, please leave a 5-star review so people can find great conversations like the one I just had with Jacqueline. But until the next episode, enjoy every mile.